So we're going to talk about a very interesting topic here. The title of the topic is thanks. The title of the topic is show. I'm not going to mention the show's name. It's got a funny name to it, but kind of inspired by that. We're looking at what we discussed with product management, the role of product management, and how it differs from company to company, vertical to vertical. So let me just kind of go with this title. It's really looking at the different nuances of product management. So I'm really excited and very happy to have a distinguished panel here, each of them representing a segment. What about this? Okay. It's a multifaceted panel, right? And we have seen how this panel, how the product management itself, the definition differs based on several factors. You have, product management differing by multinational companies versus Indian companies. If there's any nuances there. We also have kind of looking at large companies versus startups as well, and within startups, how it differs early stage or mid stage. Yeah, and we also have B2B versus B2C. How product management is different for B2B versus B2C. Right? I have a see this behind you, so I don't know if you can see. How you can see that? Yeah. Good. Also have platforms versus products versus applications, and finally mobile. Right, mobile is everywhere. So. As you can see, the panel that we have here, each one of them represents a particular segment, and some of them actually start with multiple segments from their experience. So you have Mukesh Agarwal coming from a director of products at Comedy Media, and you manage platforms. Right? So that's great. You can get to hear from a platform product management perspective. And you have Saran, Chatterjee, ex-Yahoo, and now VP of products at Flipkart. Right? You get to hear what he has to say from a internet consumer, e-commerce, product management perspective. And you have Pinkesh, of course. Everybody knows Pinkesh, right?
Just a little high bar.
The founder of Institute of Product Leadership Business School, first of its kind in India, and formerly at Mcafee. Right? So I think that's another sector. And also, I think Pinkesh is, well, looking forward to kind of hearing Mcafee's thought, because he has got tremendous exposure from adaptive marketing, being the training and consulting companies to many product companies. So, kind of look at an all-round perspective for Pinkesh. Of course, you have Pallav heading the CEO of Fusion Charts, which is an Indian startup looking at B2B product.
D2D, we call it.
What do you call it? There you go. That was D2D. Nice. Okay, awesome.
B2B is old.
B2B is old. So fascinating. Okay, so the format is I have 5 questions, 5 minutes, right? I'm going to share the questions with all of you. I'm sure all of you have a lot of questions also, right? So I'm going to share the questions with you now. And hopefully I have chosen these questions that relates to what each one of you have in your mind. So it's we'll start off with defining product management. Who's a successful product manager, or the attributes of a successful product manager? How does one begin the journey to PM? I think that's a question I get a lot, right? And I know some companies are looking at helping their engineers move to product management, so we'll talk about that, right? What are the top 3 attributes you look for when you're hiring, right? So this is a list of questions, and without much further ado, I would like to kind of begin. First with Pinkesh, and how would you define product management?
So I think maybe a faster way of answering is to replay the video that of what Ram said, and then we just answer that question. Because I think we did an awesome job.
You can take an easy way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what good product managers do, right? They kind of figure out a way to. But if I had to crisply give one-line definition, perhaps it's all about delivering delight for market problems as opposed to customer problems. And if we have time, I can elaborate on that. And doing it in a way that actually creates a certain amount of profitability in a predictable fashion. So anybody who can orchestrate this is essentially, in my mind, a product manager, even though that individual might not have the role or the title of a product manager. I think sometimes we often make a mistake. A lot of companies, especially in India, fall in this dilemma that, look, I'm not a product manager, but I'm involved in the product management process. And I think these are two different things. So even though you're not a product manager, if your product management process involvement is so high, then maybe you are a product manager. So again, delivering the light to real market problems in a predictable and profitable way.
Great. That would be a good.
So I think a product manager is somebody who understands the intersection of three things. One is business feasibility, one is market viability, and one is the technical ability. So while he's not directly responsible for the technical parts of the entire process, but he needs to know what the technical ability of his team is. So in a sense, he's kind of a CEO of the product, and he sees it end to end, owns the entire product, ensures that it suits the market requirements, the team is up to it, empathizes with the customers to understand what could help them with the product, and then figures out the pitch and the segment of the marketing part. So product management again has two parts, the product functional part and the product marketing part. So it's a combination of both outside.
Great. Saran,
I think these guys have summarized it pretty well, but I think one thing which I'm finding extremely important in my current jobs, I'm 2 months into Flipkart, is actually specifically about user experience. And I can't elaborate that enough, but what I also feel is that while you have all of these other criteria that were listed out, but product management is also about being able to define, part of delighting is actually being able to define the right sort of user customer experiences. And at Flipkart, that bar is pretty high, which is product managers that are sort of looking at or working on the front end aspects of the experience. But then there is a massive sort of back end supply chain as well, and product management there also plays a pretty important role, which I'll come to later in one of the other points.
Awesome. Thanks.
So there's always a downside to be the last person to speak because part of it is already covered. I have a new name for product manager, and I call product manager not service managers. Because product managers are sitting in the center of a lot of constituencies who basically make up the product, the customer on one side, the market on the other side, the sales people, the business development. So product managers are basically servicing all these different constituents of business, including customers and market, who are actually paying for your product. There are 4 things product managers do, especially at company. The first thing is making a list. And there are a lot of fancy names of this. Some call it product strategy, some call it product roadmap. But at the end of the day, you are basically depending understanding what customer needs, understanding what market needs, and decide out of 5 things you can do, what are the 5 things you want to do. The second thing which product managers do is basically launch the product. Or before that, decide what to build, right? And so that includes user experience, requirement analysis, and requirement applications, providing some material which can help makers make the product. Right? And the third thing is launching the product, which basically could include managing the product management or the project management part of product management, and also launching the product to market. And the fourth thing is understanding what the product is doing, which is more of an analytics part. Different companies do it in a different way, but these are, I think, the 4 main things which define product management, which is to make a list of things to do, to define what those lists are, and to launch the product, and to write how product is doing.
Okay, great. So just quickly mention that we'll come back to the questions from the audience. And feel free to jump in if you have a question. So I got a couple of questions myself, just to look at the 6 million nuances. And one of the things that we don't have to agree or reach a consensus because we come from different perspectives. Is there a one-size-fits-all in that sense for what a product manager does across, let's say, startups, MNCs, or different platforms, applications? Is there really there's a one definition that fits all of them? If so, what would it be?
Well, I think there are some of things we need to do to basically build a product, know the product, and make the product profitable. Depending on the size of company or what stage the company is, the responsibility could be divided into multiple disciplines. So when I was at Microsoft had 4 different disciplines, which could be done by a single product management discipline in a startup. The product planners, product managers, product marketing managers, and program managers. So these are the 4 disciplines at Microsoft, which in my current company at Only is done by product management. So I would say depending on the list of things needs to be done to launch a product, but those responsibilities could be divided into different disciplines depending on the size of the company and the kind of products you're building.
Any other takers?
My own assessment of this, and having seen others do this, is that I think the single most attribute above and beyond the functional skills that a product manager has, the leadership skills that a product manager should have, the domain expertise the product manager should have. The overriding thing is, can you be adaptive? And at the end of the day, even it's not about one size fits all. Even the same product manager is less efficient in a different stage of the same company. So you have to really be adaptive in terms of the needs of what your company or your current role requires, and can you quickly move to satisfy that, right? So I think this is a two-dimensional question. Can the same guy be a product manager in a different company? I think a good product manager is fairly transferable. The skills and foundation levels are fairly transferable. And the question is, can the guy adapt to that new world? That's an individual question.
Great. There's this management expertise, and Google is famous for hiring generalists, general product managers, right? I mean, so how much do you believe domain knowledge matters in doing product management?
So since I had a role, maybe I'll go ahead and do that. So in coming back to my Mcafee days, when you hire somebody in a role, it's a factor of 2 things, right? What is the overall balance of the 3 components we have in the entire product management team? Right? So the 3 components that we look at is domain expertise, your functional skills. Can you do the market research part? Can you do the segmentation? Can you get the customer insights that we are explaining? Which is, basically, can you do the role of a product manager? Are you functionally capable of doing it? And third is your leadership skills, soft skills. Can you work with stakeholders, sometimes difficult stakeholders? We all talk about influence and leading by influence, right? Can you actually do that? And sometimes it's a very important leadership skill. Now, those are the 3 components of a product manager. It really depends on what my team composition is. If I'm missing on that domain expertise, absolutely that's the number 1 thing I want in my team. If I've got too many domain experts already who probably understand security, I don't need yet another domain expert to balance the team out. Right? I'd rather have somebody who works amazingly well with my engineering staff, who amazingly works well with my sales staff, and so on and so forth. So I think it's a function of what that current team is looking for.
Yeah, I was going to exactly say that. At least the way we sort of look at both at Yahoo and Flipkart is the exact same way. In fact, I would rather not. If there's a need, then I would lay a lot of emphasis on it. But for the most part, I would rather want to have people with very diverse or very different that have the basic skills, but that are the right intrinsics. But that just bring a completely different perspective to the table. I think that's where most of the innovation and most of the new ideas that we've seen come out, both at Yahoo and here. It's been primarily from people that actually are not the sort of the domain experts, because what I've seen is the people that tend to get biased. They get into this rut and they think sort of like the mass. They don't think new, different, game-changing, and which is what, especially at Flipkart, right? Trying to define online retail. And if I look back and if I see people that are there are people that actually have a lot of expertise in sort of this space. They're fine, they bring a lot of depth, but when you start seeing sort of, the next big thing, like would I want to create sort of an online virtual shopping experience, gamify it. Those kind of experiences come from people that are just nothing to do with this, right? And those are new things that we want to try with a subset of our users and see if it works. I don't know if it's going to work, but one of the biggest pain points we've heard from our users are like people that don't yet shop today, or people that actually still want that touch and feel experience, that want to sort of feel it, touch it, and be part of that experience. And this idea came from somebody who was actually IPMA doing some consulting. So less emphasis on the domain, unless you need it for very specific stuff, but more on the people that have creativity out of the box thinking. I agree.
So are you saying we should expect like a virtual jeans that I can try out?
But less of lifestyle, more of the mall experience.
Thank you, sir. Can I request one of the volunteers to keep an eye on the time? So this 5 minutes per question, please. So, in case somebody has a question, please raise your hand. We'll come to that. Let's just take one question for this after my question here. One of the things that, so we conduct strategy roundtables, right? And one of the things that kind of came out of that is that while we struggling so much with product management in the IT industry, because you look at other verticals like automobiles, watches, or bikes, they're pretty successful products, right? So how do you, how different would you see or compare product management across these verticals? What can we draw and learn from product management applied to automobiles or watches or other sectors?
Well, I will take a first crack at this. So in IT industry and the software industry, compared to more traditional industries, I think the industry is moving very quickly. I mean, especially in the industry which I work in, it's a digital planning. When we see new products, new ideas coming every day. So first, I think a product manager or anybody who is responsible for defining the company strategy, product strategy, needs to be agile and understand how fast the industry is moving and keep pace with that. It's probably not the case with the traditional industries like automobile or any other consumer goods.
I agree. I think it's the technology shift which is very different in the way our industry in the IT space works. And there are a lot of people who we work with in the auto and the pharma space. And I was having this conversation with this guy who essentially was the product manager of Zyro drug, which I think is now available in India and it's released. And it's like a 9-month cycle for us to freeze the requirements of what we what's at stake is pretty bad and pretty hard, right? One wrong decision during that 9-month process is very hard to recover. Now, a mistake made in the way that Ram was talking about, and maybe using Yahoo as an example, not to say that this is applicable everywhere, but just in case of Ram, perhaps. You screw up, well, 2 hours later you can fix it, right? And maybe half your users didn't even notice that you screw up, right? Because the website is now updated. Now, you screw up in a molecule that is supposed to cure cold or cure a stomach ache, and that's not working. Well, that's a couple $100,000 or maybe even millions of dollars of loss for that pharma company to get it wrong. So what's at stake for what your decisions are is going to be a function of how fast you write it in that process, right? So it's really, if the damage is too bad and it is very hard to recover from, you better take the time to make sure it is. That's one of the things we see different in an FMCG, perhaps, or an auto or a pharma, in the IT world. Usually we have a chance to fix it fast, right? Usually. Hardware companies in the IT space, it's still very difficult. But in software, this is even more easier. And in the cloud, it's even like, nobody even notices.
I also think like in those industries, the processes are very well codified because they have been there for ages, those industries. Whereas in our industry, like product management is very new field. We are talking about maybe a couple of decades tops, and we don't have enough data points, and thus there's no formalized process which we can say that yes, this is the way everybody's still trying and figuring out, okay, does this work for us? And for each, for different dynamics, like for a startup or for a different size of team, even for what kind of application you're building, there's a different set of rules which come into the picture, and everyone tries to tweak it to their own benefit. So that also makes a difference, I think.
Great. Any questions? Yeah, good. Can you get a mic for this? Yeah. Good.
Thanks, Mukesh. In last meeting, the IPMA was a university session where I found a partner for one of our products. So this question is going to, it's discussing, but at least we found some interesting ideas that we can collaborate. So coming to product management, how important the partnership focus should be. So for example, during these discussions, I realized one point that both the teams from the brokerage job actually, teams from my company involved in discussion with that company who I met in the last meeting. So there was, both of them seemed to be interested. There is a lot of synergy that we can do these things, we can evolve and collaborate in this way. But there is also some concern about which market you are looking at, because the products have similar capabilities, but when combined together, it can be a bigger solution. But point was, there is also a concern like which market you are looking at. Are you going to come to this market sooner or later? So how much emphasis the product manager should focus on finding the right partners? So I would like to make some ideas on that.
Right partnerships for markets.
Okay, so the digital advertising space is pretty complex. I don't know if there are people who work in this digital advertising space, but there's a famous chart called Numa Landscape. And Numa Landscape is some guy from investment banking who basically looked at the ad ecosystem. And if you look at the ad ecosystem, there are out of 15 or 16 different segments in basically what is required to serve a digital ad from from a direct publisher, right? So in this particular space, right, partnership is key because we are one of the two blocks in that 16 block landscape, and when we are offering a solution to somebody like advertiser or publisher, they look for end-to-end solution and something which is not possible to build in-house, and we rely heavily on sort of partnerships where we define what is our core competency or what is that we are good at, and what areas where we can partner with other service providers to provide an integrated offering to our end customer who are marketers or publishers. So especially in my industry, partnership is something which is key. In my team, product management, I would say spend 30% of the time building solutions and 25-30% time looking for partners who can work with us and provide a solution which we can offer to customers.
I think partnerships is a very crucial element of the entire productizing process. And to me, partnerships is even one level higher. If you look at the models, there are probably for a product manager 4 different kinds of partnerships that one should look at. One is your product partnership. This is where your OEMs happen. This is where you take component from here, there, somewhere else, and you kind of deliver a solution. Or your component goes into some other solution. Right? This is what I think Fusion Chart's model is all about, right? You might not have heard of the company. Thousands of products are actually built using their components, which probably adds a lot more value to their own offering. Right? Second is your market partnership. This is where your go-to-market, they might sell, they might position your products wherever they go. Right? Then you have your sales partnership. So if you look at this, and this is one of the things that we did fairly early in the industry as well as innovative ways, at least was thought innovative at the time, is every Dell laptop is going to have this Mcafee antivirus software bundled into it. Now, the interesting thing about this dynamics that most people probably don't know is that Dell almost makes their machine free as part of these partnerships, because people like Mcafee pay Dell to deliver their software, because Dell is everywhere, or wherever they're going to go, we get a free ride. So it's not really free. We pay Dell to put our software on it. Whether you pay for the $30 after the 30 days of expiration of your trial or not, we still pay Dell. Now, here's the interesting thing. Dell took 7 of us, multiplied by a certain amount, which I cannot talk about. The Dell laptop is free now. Dell already made the money before the Dell laptop is even shipped to you. So the $450 you're paying to Dell is all pure gravy now. Think about an amazing model, and it's win-win. Mcafee is interested because of their reach. Dell is obviously making money in the process. So this is a very interesting, sales partnership. And so you have to look at all of these angles to kind of deliver something that is A, predictably profitable, and going back to what he said, Saran said also, is it delighting the end customer? Are you able to bring that faster, better, and a more interesting experience for the end customer? If so, absolutely fine. Sometimes you all go back to this, we got to do it ourselves, we can do this with a better job, I have enough engineers, I have enough construction capability or capacity. Stop falling for that. Sometimes, we all make this mistake, and I've made it early in my career path as well, right? You always kind of think, I got to do it because I want to keep that control, right? It's usually not a good way to go on.
No, we'll come back to questions. We'll just one question to this thing, and we'll have 15 minutes at the end to kind of take any questions. Okay, great. But do you have any comments from your perspective, partnerships?
I think Pinkesh covered it all. But the only thing I would say is a product manager has to look at the product end to end. So anything which comes under that role, it's actually your responsibility.
Awesome. So let's go on to the next question. Who is a successful product manager in your opinion? So then I want to start from
Yeah, sure. So we try to do this in a very black and white way. So where even at Yahoo and now at Flipkart, so we try to define these sort of competencies upfront so that it's very clear and it's very crisp. Like, what do we measure you by, and what is the kind of bar that we hold. So I'll give you my perspective. So it's basically broken down along sort of three dimensions. One is sort of the strategic pieces, which is sort of the customer orientation, be sort of able to understand the business of the market, and sort of having a more sort of when you're defining products, having more of that long-term view. So instead of getting to the next 3 months or 6 months, being able to know what the next 2 years or where do you see this product next 2 years or 3 years, and then taking the steps in that direction. So there's always the objectivity, there's always a goal, which is very important. Like, I've seen in the past where PMs sort of have taken a 6-month, 9-month view, and then going in there and then thinking, hold on, this is not really the direction I want to go, and then you change, and then the platforms under you change. So that's the sort of the strategic pieces. Then there is sort of the tactical pieces that a PM should be doing really well. And there, it starts with obviously, maintaining your sort of prioritization and all of the fun stuff, right, which I won't get into. But then I think technology orientation, I think, is important there. And again, the reason it's important because we want PMs to be able to have that sort of meaningful conversation with their with the counterparts that are basically building or developing the product. Again, being able to take that sort of, where required, being able to take a platform view or a service view, as opposed to just saying, I need this, do it. So being able to, again, it also ties into the long-term sort of picture, right, where do you see this go? And then finally, there is sort of, sort of the whole problem solving, analytical ability, and metric oriented, being able to define goals and being able to set sort of clear success criteria. So we sort of break it down into three very clear sort of defined competencies which we measure PMs at different levels. Now, an APM versus a PM versus a senior PM versus a director versus me, we get measured along these competencies in different ways. The bar is different along each of these sort of criteria. But these sort of are sort of the basic or core set of competencies that we define.
We'll come to the difference between director and VP in the fourth question. This way, strategy, tactics, and data driven.
Yes.
Pallav,
So for me, it's very simple. Like successful product manager is one who can very clearly define the problem statement, then come up with a solution and define the metrics for the success. Influence the team to build that because he does not control the team and take it to the market and make some money. If you can do all of that, I'm sure he's a successful product manager.
I think just to echo whatever they've said, I'll go back to the question one, right? What is the definition of a product manager? And if it is delivering delight in a predictable, profitable way, solving real customer problem, I think if somebody can do that, that's really the biggest success. And you can always break it down into next level of metrics, and I think Saran really summarized it fairly well that there's a process metric. Are you doing certain things that were supposed to be best practices that are supposed to be done? At the end of the day, I think, as he's also summarizing, if the product is not doing so well, to some extent you have to take responsibility for that goal not being met. The goal doesn't have to always be profitability. I think we use profit in a sense of, it could be customer adoption. Right? If you wanted to get 50,000 customers at least using it for free, and then you got 50, so something is wrong with that model as well. So I think setting the right goals and meeting it is most important.
Any question from the audience?
One of the aspects of being a successful product manager is also keeping a tab on the competitions. Now, when you typically work in a large enterprise, there is always a formal channel through which you have to get information about your competitors. Now, as an individual, if I would like to get some quick information about the competitors that I have in the market, then what are the avenues where I could dig out this information for my competitors? What would be the quickest way to get some information about my competitors?
I think I have one more answer to that: Google. Actually, in the wonderful world of Google, 20 years ago, product managers had a hard time figuring out who the hell is the competition. And second is, what the hell are they doing? Right now, both of them are equally available. But I'm assuming certain things are not available. So I'm assuming that you've already thought through that, and there are other things. One thing that we've seen a lot is our sales guys. Believe it or not, a good sales guy is going to sit down with the customer, and the customer is going to actually show up the competitor's roadmap to our sales guy, saying, hey, you know what, this is all good, but your competition is giving us a lot more X, Y, and Z. And our sales guys are taught. In fact, this was one of our metrics at the product management rollout or sales enablement, is that you need to ask them what are their alternatives the customer is evaluating, and get as much information as you can, as much in written form as well. And you'll be surprised how many times you get competitors' roadmap in a fairly legal way, by the way. There are other not so legal ways, I would say. By just using educating that endpoint, but he's actually meeting, that Salesforce is meeting, for probably 200, 300, 5,000 customers of yours. So that's another great way. The second way that in the enterprise space works well, especially when you have a distribution channel, is to go back and hang out with your channel guys. Your channel is selling your product and your competitor's product, isn't it? You go to an e-zone all the way to a retailer, but even if you go to a distributor level, he's probably selling your competitor's product too. So we'll be happy to even give you a demo of what that product looks like to you if you actually spend some time and be nice. So, but I think by far and large, Google is really your best bet. And sometimes the competitor's website is even more. You'd be surprised to see how much information they talk about future roadmaps as well, because of the overzealous marketing guy who wants to talk about what's happening 9 months from now. That's a good indication.
In the enterprise space, there's also the analyst reports, so Forrester and the Gartner, so you get unbiased views across products, but it gives you a very nice summary of where each of the products stand in comparison to yours.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of your competitive products, they also do a lot of webinars. So there's a great source to learn what they're doing. I think Google or the industry-related views are great way to know what companies are doing. I mean, product managers needs to develop the habit of spending 15 to 20 minutes half an hour every day, following the new channels, following the blogs of your competition, or the blogs related to your industry to follow what's going on. So there are a lot of information over there. The biggest challenge product managers have is to get into the habit of following the channels.
Okay, great. Maybe just one point. There's another point you can refer for competition analysis is the LinkedIn profiles or the resumes of the competition. They speak a lot about what they're doing or what they've done and the kind of stuff they're doing. So a lot of stuff you can get from there.
Thank you. So let's go to the third question now. So how does one move into product management? This has been a very topic, and especially I also moved from engineering to product management myself. So I have a question for the panel, just to get things rolling here. Which backgrounds make the PMs more successful? Is it engineering, design, or finance?
I think it's pretty agnostic, but our word of advice for the engineers, please leave your engineering attitude behind. Be ready to unlearn more than learn when engineers move into product management, because every time they see a problem, they first go and try and figure out a solution to it rather than trying and redefine if it's a problem at all, which is one of the most important parts of product management.
And in general, when you know the basic set of skills, I think we've talked enough about the skills. There are companies where, Yahoo, we had around instrumental, at least at the Bangalore office, being able to sort of define a sort of a very a plan and a structured way for people to sort of orient into PM type roles. At a company smaller the size of Yahoo, which is where the processes and these kind of things are not as well defined, we do see a lot of interest. And again, while there are defined product management roles, in some cases at Flipkart there are business folks playing the role of product management. There are engineering managers, engineering directors actually playing the role of product management. So again, it's less about sort of the title being called product manager, I think. I mean, it's more about the skills that we've been talking about and being able to demonstrate that, being able to sort of learn where a certain individual sort of needs to maybe ramp up a little bit more. Like the key skills that are required, and then being able to demonstrate that and use that in a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I would second that actually very heavily. One of the things we see with a lot of people who go through our workshops, we ask them a simple question: why do you even want to become a product manager? It's good, right? You came from this conference and seems like a glamorous thing to do. So I gotta become a product manager. And the first realization is, I think I echo that. You have to unlearn what you are coming from. Whether you are a business guy, whether you're a marketing guy or an engineering guy or a sales guy, now that you're moving into a different role, you have to understand that role and hence unlearn. The second thing, I think what Saran said is very important. Everybody, first of all, can become a product manager. In my opinion, there is no one sector or role or function or industry that you are better suited for. And I would love to see if there's a challenge in the room that you guys disagree, but everyone can become a product manager. But most don't end up being a good product manager, right? For a variety of reasons we've discussed, and perhaps we can summarize at the end of the fourth question that I saw. But what's more important is that everybody can do product management, which means the participation in the product journey is also product management, even though you are not enrolled in title a product manager. So I think keep that distinction always in your head, that you want to be more involved in product management, which is the process of creating product, which is the productizing process, or do you actually want to become a product manager, which is usually the orchestrator of that process? And that orchestration is not easy. Right? You might be a great Zakir Hussain player of tabla, but that does not mean that makes you a better Zubin Mehta, who's an orchestrator of that symphony. Right? So you have to make that distinction in your head very clearly. The good news is that you can do both. You can continue to participate in product management process and still add value.
Once again, okay.
So a couple of questions. So one of the things that we have heard anecdotally is that for a company like Google, right? So they prefer a CS background for every product manager, right? So with Marissa coming into Yahoo, so that is kind of becoming a standard in Yahoo also. That every new product management hire should have a CS degree. So what is the panel's opinion on that? And secondly, on similar lines, how important or not important is an MBA for a product manager?
Maybe I'll answer the CS part. At Microsoft also, I believe CS is required to become a product manager. I think for two reasons. One is a product manager needs to have good problem-solving skills because what you're dealing with is a lot of information. That information might be coming from sales or your CEO or from market or customers, and synthesize that information into some crystal clear definition of what you want to do, right? So you need to have good problem-solving skills, and generally engineering background is what some of the companies prefer. People who come from engineering background are generally good problem solvers. And the second thing, depending on what company you are, if you are working very closely with engineering, and somebody said like product managers don't have authority, but you need to gain the trust of engineers. You need to work with engineers. So having that engineering background certainly helps you build that trust with engineers who are actually the makers of the product.
Answering the second part of your question about the MBA part, the way I look at it is most of the startup guys are not MBAs, but most of the startup guys are product managers in themselves because they take the product end to end, figure out the market, figure out the problem, and they are actually able to convert the product into a problem-solving thing. So it's not really necessary for you to have an MBA.
How many people in the room have an MBA? Show of hands. It's dangerous to say anything more than what you already said, right? But let me go ahead and do that anyway. If you can turn off the video camera, it would be great. I think this whole MBA thing is just completely overrated. Right? And especially in India, this is even more overrated. And forget MBA, this whole stamping business that we're in. I've got a medal called IIM or ISB or whatever it is that we hang around. I think we not only is this irrelevant in the product industry, we are all hiding behind this medal, and so it is very difficult to do what he said, which is unlearn. Because we walk around with some kind of a chip on the shoulder that I am holding this, badge, I'm stamped in a certain way. And part of it, I'm sure, has to do with the culture, part of the society that we live in. I understand all that. But my candid advice, and I think as you heard from him as well, is nobody gives a damn, honestly. Now that might be a great way to enter, which becomes a filtering criteria. So now let me give you the positive side of why you should have some stamp, right? So let me kind of talk both sides of the mouth. Right? So generally how a good product manager does is a diplomat. Yeah, exactly, the speech of a diplomat, as you can see that in the diagram. So what happens is, this is 4.5 years ago, I come down, my CEO asks me, I have built a product management team in Mcafee, India. So how hard can this be? So I'm here for 4 weeks, plan 4 weeks, and I go and start interviewing people, and all of a sudden the opening is announced. And holy cow, 800 resumes, right? Now I'm here for 4 weeks. I don't have time to go through 800 resumes. So what is the first thing the hiring manager does? Filter. Exactly. So good or bad, there is a filter saying, well, you know what, it's highly likely that if somebody's gone through a good MBA program, he at least has some sense, right? 1, 2, is at least shown a commitment of doing something different than engineering, right? And so that, unfortunately or fortunately, is the reality of a hiring manager. I know, are you certified? Do you have a certain degree? Only to bring down, in this particular case, from the 800 to a manageable 400, which, by the way, 9 weeks later, I could still not hire anyone from this group. And so we had to take 2 internal guys from Mcafee, ship them back to US, groom them through some kind of finishing school, product management, and started the product management function in India. It's all reality, right? What happened here? That's how the product management function started. But so in that sense, yes, it is important to differentiate yourself from the other techie sitting next to you, left to you, and right to you here. But honestly, that is still overrated, right? That can't be the only reason you go spend 2 years of your life and spend 28 lakhs at whatever institute that you're trying to spend at, to get. There are other better ways to achieve the same.
Right? Let me ask you a follow-up question. How about trainings and certifications?
Great. Now you really put me on the spot, right? So I would go further and reascertain that the workshops and the trainings, if it is done by somebody who you believe has done himself something before for 15 years and can actually teach you something, great. But the certification at the end that comes with it, just use that as a cherry, on the ice cream. But if you don't have an ice cream, don't go after the cherries, right? So for obvious reasons, I can't say don't do the cherries. Cherries are good, but only when you have enough understanding, enough of an ice cream. That's only getting you in the door. Right? That filter criteria, just because you have a certification and you're still a dud and you can't crack code in the interview or you can't really perform, you will be out of the door, right, pretty quickly. So wait for the cherry at the end, I guess, if you're really curious. But that's not the main or do it on approach. I think I'm being modest. Nice.
You have a comment or a question?
The question is, question is, I used to have a CEO who would come and tell me, product management team is made up of a bunch of washed up engineers and guys who don't want to take risk being in sales. Either they're not good engineers or they're not good sales. I want to know what you guys think about that.
So let me take the first crack. Controversial answers. I think there's some truth to it, because sometimes what happens is that people who don't want to do anything else which is well defined ends up being a product manager. So it's very difficult. If you ask, your grandmother will ask you a question, hey, what do you do? And you say, well, I don't code, so I'm not an engineer. I don't sell. Are you a sales guy? No, I don't sell. Are you a marketing guy, designing billboards and the messages on that Gormala signal and Sony signal? No, I don't do that. Well, what do you do then? And so this is true. Sometimes that's how you fall in that role. And so it is up to you now. So if you are finding yourself in this washed up analogy or the example he used, it's okay to fall sometimes in that pit and be tagged in that container. The best thing that you can do at this point is to really bring up your, what we call influentiality index, or I think what somebody said, lead by influence. and show the rest of the group as to why this is the most critical and pivotal role. Because everybody is so busy doing what they do, there's only one person in the company who's focused on the customer context and is championing that context back into your company, and that's you, right? The engineering guy is busy building stuff, the next skyscraper, the next high-end architecture, the next fault redundant, double density, whatever it is that he's building. The sales guy is only interested in what he can sell this quarter, because he's given him the quota as a CEO, right? So there's only time to think this quarter. Marketing guys are very interesting. How many marketing guys in the room before we throw some more egos here? Okay, maybe one or two, so we can say whatever we want. And so they live in this tactical world, right? Because to them it's like 2-minute Maggie noodle. If it's not happening in 2 minutes, I gotta move on to the next Maggie. Whereas the product manager is baking the pasta, making it, doing it. It'll be 6 months before you know that he made a bad call, isn't it? Think about it. If you are even in a consumer internet, it will take a while before people know that you actually messed up. And so the marketing guy is obviously doing what he's doing in the tech. There's only one entity in this company who's actually focusing on delivering delight to solve real market problems in a predictable, profitable way. So if you can demonstrate that to your company, you will be a hero. Going back from that washed up guy to really the chief product guy, right? So that's true.
So let me have some more questions. Going back to how can somebody move into product management? So what is the first step being in a company working for not in the product management, but in any other organization? What is the first step that anyone can take to get into product management? What would you advise? Somebody comes to you and asks, I want to become a product manager. What would you advise with the first step or first 3 steps?
I think the first step which I would recommend is to, if you are an engineer or if you're in any function, right, just broaden your role in the same sort of discipline, right, where if you're an engineer, work with product managers you're working with and help the product managers, define or help them in whatever way you can as an engineer, right, not by writing code, but, just broadening responsibilities beyond just writing code, right. If you're a marketer, then, work with product managers to understand how they are basically going out to understand customer context and bringing the customer context. So you have a lot of, whatever role you are in, there are a lot of people who are working around you. So working with them, understanding what they do, and helping them what they do is, I would say, the first step. And in that process, you will also realize, are you really enjoying that work? Because what happens is, I see a lot of engineers move to product management for whatever reasons, and people then go back to engineering because they don't enjoy as being a product manager, right? So you need to work with all the people around you, help them in whatever you can, and realize that once you move to product management, that's something which you will enjoy.
I think it also is a function of the company that you're in, the size of the company. Like some companies have structured programs, right? So Flipkart is different. So I won't even go there. One unique way in Flipkart we try to do it is we actually take the PM out of the equation. Like for instance, if there's somebody who's not a PM who wants to get into product management, we have that luxury in Flipkart because it's growing, there's enough problems to solve, and there aren't product managers solving these problems, all of the problems, right? So we have that luxury, and as a result, whoever is interested, we give them that problem and tell you, take this problem, go figure it out. What is the best way to solve this problem? Keeping all of the skills that we talked about, or keeping all of the criteria in mind that we talked about, and which serves as a great sort of grooming bed for PMs. So again, that's why I think it's a function of, I guess, this state of the company and how that company operates.
So I'll try to keep it brief, right? So I think there are 3 simple steps to do this, and I've seen many people do this successfully and not so successfully. I can tell you my own example later, right? So, the first is, understand. Second is immerse. And third is plan. It's very simple. 3 steps. And how long you take in each of these steps is up to you. It's up to your own capacity to learn, up to your own opportunity to get an immersion chance. Not everybody who wants to get immersed themselves in the experience that, Saran mentioned that, get involved in some project as a pseudo product manager, as a proxy product manager. Sometimes you have to wait. First is understand, what is the product management process? What is this productizing process that we all talk about? Ram talked in a lot of detail, there are a lot of books. Find something on Google. You don't have to go attend a training or a workshop to figure out what that process is. Right? Workshop is nothing but an accelerated view of getting the same thing. A lot of things are all in the wonderful world of Google out there. Forums like this, it's a brilliant opportunity to get yourself in the understanding part. Right? Second is, now you've understood enough, can you immerse yourself? Somebody talk about comparative analysis, right? You don't have to be a product manager to do comparative analysis of your own product. Just go do it. Who's stopping you? There's no official charter that an engineering guy in your company cannot do comparative analysis, right? What's the worst that will happen? You will produce a comparative analysis to your product management, your CEO, and he might laugh at it. Or he might say, hey, you know what, this guy is showing initiative, maybe we should invest more time and energy in it. So you can do it yourself, right? So product management is fortunately one of those roles that you can actually pretend to be a product manager without being a product manager. Can any one of you pretend to be an engineering manager without being an engineering manager, having 50 people report under you? Not really. Can you pretend to be a sales guy that you can go and start selling stuff and kind of immerse yourself? Not really. So good news is, product management role is actually fairly doable without you officially calling yourself a product manager. Right? So that's the immersion part. And the third one is plan it. Don't let this be an accident. Right? So plan it out, right? Whether as part of the plan you're angling within your own company, how do I approach the right stakeholders so that they see the value in you and you turn and get yourself into engineering to a product management. Do some courses as Ravi put me on the spot to answer, and maybe use that as a career placement opportunity at the end of that course to go get placed somewhere. But plan it. At the end of the day, you can't just do that without the first two steps either, right? So it's very simple. Understand what that process is, immerse yourself, and plan. It will happen.
I think the product manager needs to have a very holistic view of everything around the product. So I think there are two ways. You start a startup. By that, you'll already have a view of what's going around.
Understand, start, and you apply, right? All on your
Or B, if you're an existing company, spend some time with each team. So ranging from a few days to a few weeks, right, from your engineering to marketing to sales, customer support, finance, and HR, to get a holistic view of how everything works in tandem. And once you've done that, then you can go and figure out the process or figure out a better process to put around that product management. And when you're spending time with those teams, augment those teams with some of your innovative ideas or where you can also help them execute it.
Great. So let me just take a quick survey of the audience here. How many here in the audience want to move to product management? Not product managers, want to move to product management. Okay, all right.
How many of you are here are not product managers and don't want to move into product management? That's good.
He's very happy being here.
That's good. Okay. No, right? Mukund seems to be interested in these reasons.
Okay, great. So, be with us.
So on many occasions, we talk about the product manager as a product owner, the product CEO who owns the vision and is responsible for delivering something that delights the consumers, the customers. But my question is based on empowerment. Like many cases, the product manager is not the CEO of the company and usually reports to someone else who has some sort of senior ranking or authority in being able to overrule the product manager's decision, or even it might even be on something based on gut feel or may not even be data related. So I'd like to ask the panel if they could maybe talk about some experiences where they've had someone try to overrule their decisions from a senior position and how whether they have been able to succeed in convincing that person, or maybe they've had to give in to the senior person's decisions.
I can start. So it happens all the time, by the way. Like at all levels. Like, I report to the CEO, or if there's somebody who reports to me, or somewhere else. So I think if I understand your question, one, have you faced that problem and how do you overcome that problem, right? So it actually starts with really one, you understand the problem or whatever you're solving really well, right? But be able to quantify that with facts. What I've seen more often than not is when you go with a proposal or when you go with a certain more often than not it's a proposal, right? That hey, we should be doing X or we should be doing Y. More often than not, it has been something which is like a gut call or not backed with facts. By facts, I mean sort of well thought through, comparable. It's always been like hey, I think this is there is a room for experimentation, but when you're trying to propose something big, something different from the sort of the general trajectory of where this company is headed or the overall company objectives, it has to be backed with facts. Like either you validated this with your customers and you know that they're clamoring for it, or you have enough data that backs the claim that you're making. So when those are generally what I've seen is that when those two are everything else being thought through, but if those two are missing, then people start poking holes in it, and then you can't defend it in a broader forum, right? And then it ends up becoming sort of more often than not, park it, we'll revisit it later.
There's an acronym, right? People. There's a lot of people. Highest income paid person's opinion in the room. Very aware of that. Okay. So actually, we're running. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's it. So I was going to say, I think this is another area that I would strongly urge everyone in the room, having met enough people in India now who are trying to make a transition or who are already there and maybe are stuck in the sense that, why am I not becoming a director of PM or a VP of PM? I've been doing what I'm doing, it's been an awesome long time now. I think part of the reason is that we often underestimate or ignore the importance of this whole credibility and influence building that I think Saran also explained in his own ways. Right? This is extremely critical. It's not the bright idea and the amazing PowerPoint that you put together with the right facts. That's important too. But at the end of the day, do you have enough credibility with the stakeholders who are saying yes or no to it? If you have not spent enough time building that influence with them, that no matter how good your data is, how good your presentations might be, it still has a slight chance of not getting the go-ahead. Right? Because at the end of the day, people are approving people's teams' visions, not PowerPoints and data. Now, I strongly recommend everyone to read this book. I think it's John Caldwell. The name of the book is 6 Principles of Influence. So the guy systematically explains how to build influence, and there are 6 different principles of building that influence systematically with your stakeholders. Now, we're all logic-driven guys, and we all think, well, hey, hang on, I know how to crunch numbers in Excel, and the M&A plan looks awesome, or this product plan looks amazing, I'm going to make $6 million. And maybe it is amazing, but we've often not looked at the soft side of the skills or the leadership side of the skills. And that's number one inhibitor in our opinion, even in the US, not just India. For people who there's sometimes, dirt business plans get the approval, and amazing business plans don't get it. Right? Even internally, you might have noticed all that is a function of a simple thing. Your influentiality index, your II, is low. So it's not that the market research part you need to work on now. You need to work on the II part if you're in a larger organization or a bigger stakeholder setting.
It's a great segue into the next question. So let's move on to the next question because we're running out of time. So how does one do in product management? And you just mentioned the difference between a director and a vice president. How can one product manager move up the ladder? Right? So are there any digital benchmarks you look for somebody to be a director of product management versus a vice president?
Yeah, I think Shah mentioned like 3 dimensions of product management: strategic, tactical, and problem-solving skills, or skills which you need to make the product happen. Right. One, I think, attribute of growing product management is to move your focus away from more tactical strategy. Right. If you are a product manager, junior product manager, senior product manager, you spend a lot of time with engineers. You spend a lot of time defining what to build. And you don't look at the big picture, right? But if you want to grow into director of product management or lead the product management, it's important to basically understand, where the industry is heading, what is the business strategy, and do you have a broader view of how you can help the company go where it wants to go by building the product which you're responsible for. So having a broader view, having focus away from, I would say you need to be completely strategic. You need to stay close to actually building the product, but have more of a strategic view on where you want to go or where your company is going in the product.
I think some of it is also like it or not, it's also a function of the impact demonstrated impact. Now, again, I mean, being small companies, the definition of demonstrated impact can vary. But I think what Pinkesh was mentioning was that I think the influentiality index is also very important, like being able to build that relationship, which I think is important. I think for anybody to grow, and not just product management, but I think, like it or not, that's just how the corporate world works, right? Then you have your sort of core set of product management skills, which is sort of beating down to death here, right? That keep on doing it. I think at the end of the day, if the culture of I think it's important also to know the culture of the company that you are in, right? I mean, certain companies actually meritocratic, bottoms up, not really sort of guys at the top saying do this, and if you do it, then boom, you've done your job. It's more about like what do you bring to the table, and then being able to think differently, being able to demonstrate that you can think differently, and then you are actually able to execute on it and actually showcase the impact, right? So I think, to summarize what I was saying, one is, again, to build that sort of influentiality index. I really like that, by the way. So working on getting that index high. So I think that's important, and always be cognizant of, at the end of the day, you are actually being measured by the impact that you're driving. So being able to demonstrate the impact, being able to show that impact, being able to sort of make people understand the impact that you're driving. Sometimes impact may not be numbers per se. There are strategic projects that take forever to, it's different ways of showing people what that impact was of what you did. And you do that more often, then again, in any company, people sort of tend to value that. And for me personally, that has worked. The differentiality thing and being able to demonstrate impact.
So I think +1 to whatever both of them said, right? So I would agree with all of that. Let me tell you something that does not matter in that transition, which might be is also important to understand in the Indian context, right? Which is this age and experience. It does not matter. Right? So now this is interesting to understand because we live in this world of engineering ladder where unless you have certain gray hair or no hair, you really can't become a VP. Unless you have 150 people report to you, you really can't go to the next level, isn't it? And that's kind of the R&D centers and the culture that you typically see. And whether it's a startup or a large company, it doesn't really matter. Here, it's interesting that the age and experience is not mattering. So you don't have to wait till you get to 42 to become a director and then 51 to become a VP. You're probably looking at some guys here, not to say that we are telling how old we are, but you can fairly guess. This is not so this is important to understand. Don't be limited with this mental block that, I'm going to have to spend 5 years to do this before which I can even be eligible. Right? So it's kind of what you do in that 5 years is more important. As he said, building that demonstrated capability. The second thing that is extremely important is that this lack of imbalance, especially when you move up higher in the organization. You might be okay to have this imbalance initially. So the imbalance is on the 3 vectors we talked about, right? So the 3 vectors being domain expertise, your functional skills. Can you do market research? Do you understand how to build a business plan? Do you know what go-to-market planning is? Do you know what sales enablement is? All of the functional skills. The third is your leadership skills. So you might be skewed initially. You might only be the domain expert. And you might still do a great job as a great product manager, just because you have amazing domain expertise. That will not work as you move up. Vice versa. You might be a great soft skills guy, and maybe that's okay with making you successful or looking perceived success in your current role. The balance of those 3 things is extremely important to make that trigger. Which you might realize, well, look, I've been successful, I got promoted every 2 years based on my domain expertise, and now why am I stuck? What worked for me in the past should have worked now. Why am I stuck as a director not becoming a VP, or as a group manager not becoming a director? That might be okay initially, but the balance of those 3 things is extremely important for making that trigger.
So, Pallav, you come from a different perspective altogether. You were entrepreneur when you were 19? Or,
A little earlier.
Earlier, yeah. 17. Right. So what helped us, you founded this company and you've taken it from where it was to where it is. But what's your perspective when you're going to start building the company and you hire product managers?
So it's been a fun experience. I mean, first we did not hire product managers for a long time because I was managing the product. And then as we started growing our product portfolio, then we felt the need to have product managers. But again, we don't have the typical hierarchy. It's still a very small company, 60 odd people, so we don't have like an AVP or an SVP. Each product has its own product manager. The growth path is, as long as the product grows, you're growing with the product, and then you get a portfolio of products. So the way we do it is, if you're handling a product, you're free to create other products related to it for the same segment, plus minus the engineering team, but you have to prove the data points right. So you work on those metrics. If they prove the data point right, they have flexibility to run it as their own kingdom.
Great, awesome.
I think one point I want to add in the growth of product management is, I think Pinkesh has mentioned, it's a leadership. Leadership is something which is also one of the crucial elements to great product management. In any product organization, there are a lot of problems which are, I would say, visible problems, like define problems that you need to write a spec, or we need to do market research, or we need to do customer research. But then there are a lot of problems which are undefined problems, right? Which you don't solve. It's not going to matter, but if you solve, it can have a immeasurable impact, right? So the people who show the leadership in identifying those problems and solve those problems, I've seen growing faster in the product management discipline. I mean, they do their regular job, which is required to basically ship the product and build the product. But then, the problem could be process-related problem where you are not doing something the right way. If you invest time, or if you show the leadership in solving the process problem, right, it will probably help the organization do something better and more effectively. So leadership is, I think, one of the key component to grow as you move from junior product manager to higher in the chain.
Great. Let me go to the quick question, the last question, and then we'll open up for the 3 questions before we wrap it up. We're running behind. What are the top 3 attributes to look for during hire? It's like a rapid fire question, right? So how do you know you're interviewing the product manager?
Okay, so again, it depends on levels, but over the phone, the first thing we check for is communication. Given any question, is he able to articulately communicate back and explain to me what I'm trying to say, and not being long and winded and confusing. So first filter, can I understand what he's saying? In a very easy, simple way, given the role that product managers play. The second piece, again, depends on the role itself, but I think what we tend to look for is that we define this as product thinking. When I say product thinking, I mean all of the things that we were talking about. I'm just summarizing into product thinking, and you do that in the context of a case. Just take any problem, is he able to think in a, given an ambiguous problem, is he able to think in a structured way? Does he have a sort of a framework by which he's able to actually, demonstrate that he can break down that problem into smaller chunks and go from there? And then, I think finally, who doesn't sort of get into solutioning straight away? Like if I give a question, who doesn't get into solutioning straight away, but actually takes a step back to first ask the right questions before getting into it. Sort of in that order, roughly. In a sort of, phone or, face-to-face interview. There are other things, but I would say those 3 to me are the most important.
I think I already answered it, right? So, which is, let's see if it's kind of boring for the audience now. One more time to hear, but it's extremely important to understand, right? So it's the soft skills, the leadership skills. Can you negotiate? Can you manage stakeholders? Can you communicate? Can you present? Can you resolve conflicts? Extremely important, right? So it's your leadership skills. You try to test that. Second is your functional skills, right? Do you know what requirements writing is, and do you have basics of how to write a user story in Agile for you to be able to work with that engineering team? Do you know what a marketing plan even looks like and how to create one? The hands-on practical stuff you have to do in that job. And third is your domain expertise. Usually the domain expertise is self-evident in the resume itself. So although you'd be surprised what people claim and what they actually say, during an interview would be fairly sometimes different, or different depths. Not to say that they're being ingenious, but I might write a buzzword of enterprise architecture. Well, there are 10 levels of enterprise architecture depth that you can assess that as well, right? So, but those are the 3 things that any hiring manager usually looks for, subconsciously or consciously when they interview.
I think what we look for primarily is first he has to be a great listener. Because product management is more about listening than about talking out. The experimental attitude with no solutioning approach right away, as Sharan mentioned. And third is a data-driven approach, data/facts-driven approach.
I think one thing which I don't look at when I hire product manager domain expertise. I think if you hire smart people and if they are able to learn very quickly, that's something which is good to have, but not something which you must have for a product manager. I think few attributes which I look at is decision making. Product managers make decisions all the time, whether that's when doing market research or customer research or building a list of things which you need to do, or like 5 things you possibly do. So decision making is something crucial, and there are various ways to evaluate that, and that's something which is critical for in my team. Second is the problem solving. I think we have repeated that many times. Like somebody has to understand like various contexts, a large amount of information, and synthesize that information into something which is crystal clear and crisp to communicate and define. Finally, depending on what product you are working on, if you are working on a consumer-facing product, then design skill is something which is very critical, which is to be able to work with your user experience designer or visual designer, whoever is putting a nice face to the screens, but somebody who can understand the user scenarios and create the workflows or improve the workflows in the product.
Okay, great. So we'll take a couple of questions before we wrap it up. Do you have a question?
The recent days, the product owner, role product owner is being used or discussed in almost every organization we're looking at product owners and things. Do you think this is just a role name, or do you think it's a trend towards growing expectation from a product manager?
Yeah, I think the things you do as a product manager doesn't change, whether you call it a product owner or I think product owner is a sort of terminology I've been hearing in more of a Scrum or Agile methodology. But the kind of things you need to do, what you're responsible for, doesn't change, whether you call it product owner or product manager. I mean, whatever we talked about so far, having that customer empathy, be able to solve the problems, be able to define what products to build, which area to focus on, which market to focus on, those things product manager needs to do. Regardless of what you call it.
So I would agree. I think it's a real role, and a lot of people in India actually start out with that role, just because it's the most what we call inbound product management, which is easier to get into than more market-facing and customer-facing, especially when you work for a company where your customers might not be geographically in your proximity, right? So it's a great role to get in. But I think your plan, again, going back to that understand, immerse, and plan. Your plan should be to figure out how to go to that real product management. When I say real, a broader responsibility product management. Product owner is also a real role. And it's a very critical role. Because at the end of the day, the engineering guys will go build something completely out of whack if you don't guide them with the company's vision and do that. Now, one thing that I would say that this whole title business in India is very interesting. It's interesting around the world. In India, it's even more interesting. And I see some adaptive alumni sitting here in the room, so maybe it's and they see this quoting me quite often when we do our workshops. There's a guy, and he's not here, so don't look around. But there's a guy in India, and there's a couple guys now in that company who calls themselves requirement scientist. I kid you not. This is the real title of this company. And it's a company that you all know of. I tell you the name, all of you know about that company, right? So it's very interesting how they were able to capture this cultural context that, hey, what do I do? Well, I write requirements. But product management is not something that people understand. Right? Scientist, on the other hand, is a culturally higher emotional value in the company. Right? Because it's a very technology-driven, R&D-driven center. And so we want to capture both what we do and what we should be seen as. So this guy managed to sit down with HR, which I'm generally clueless what to call people, especially in this phase, because the ladder is not well developed, right? It's very, very informal. And requirement scientist 1, requirement scientist 2, there are levels. And he started this trend, and now there are 8 people in his company who are in this different varying levels of. So I think don't get fooled by this whole title business. At the end of the day, it is what you do and how much of that productizing process are you, again, developing your understanding, getting broader responsibility year after year, week after week. That's kind of the important thing.
We'll take one more question. Yeah,
detecting, how do you figure out if it's a creative conflict or if it is out of an ego? I have put out an idea, now I'm supporting it to the end. So how do you figure out between these two?
Again, like, should this buy button go here, or here, right? And so typically, more often than not, it's because again there's no well-defined what I call as guidelines, and guidelines based on either some kind of a past usability study or some kind of a past say an AD test or something which is sort of just validates a certain hypothesis. More often than not, what we see is that these kind of conflicts between design, PM, engineering arise because the hypotheses are still hypotheses and they're not validated. And we essentially break that kind of the tiebreaker for that is essentially, we do the best that we can in terms of what we can all agree, and then let's just test out the 2 or 3 different variations, right? On the other hand, if there's something that has been tested in the past, then we would actually make sure that those kind of guidelines are actually codified. Like for instance, in the case of the kind of experiences that we create, we know what works and what doesn't work. Each of this has been tested. Some of this has not been tested, so the ones that have been tested, they're actually written down and codified, so that there's always that for reference. Because 100 tests happen, and all of these are sort of just basically validating hypotheses. So that there's minimal room for such kind of conflict, but this still arise. And at some point you'll have to make a call and just say, let's test 2 or 3 variations and see which one works best for our users.
Okay, so my apologies, we have to stop here. We are way out of time. I want to thank the panelists for really demystifying product management. We have a few souvenirs here from Mukesh Agarwal. Thank you, Mukesh. Saran, Chatterjee. Pinkesh.
Thank you.
Pallav.